Over 2,500 homes went back on the market in Sarasota County alone in the first half of 2021. As Gomer Pyle used to say, surprise, surprise!
Real estate agent man.
How is this happening in such a strong seller's market? Why is this important? What other questions should you be asking?
And now your host of today's program, Steve Martin Smith.
This conversation is one that should be considered as equally important to sellers as it is to buyers. It really affects everybody. I mean, think about this. Now, we're just talking about 6 months in 2021, but this type of thing happens month after month after month. In fact, I just ran the numbers. Today is August 28th. And so I ran the numbers for the past 2 months, and we're still averaging 400 or more per month. So it is highly likely that we'll hit about 5,000 houses that have gone back on the market by the end of the year. Now, let's just talk about the first 2,500, okay? Because that's 2,500 people or families who thought they had their house sold and were making plans to move. It's another 2,500 people or families who thought they'd found their new home, and it turns out they were wrong. So that's 5,000 people or families just in the first 6 months who were negatively affected in part by bad advice and or bad decisions. Now, when you see a problem and you don't want it to happen to you, there are things that are just common sense to try and do. Well, the first thing is try and understand what's going on. What are some of the main causes for this? And see if there's a way that you can avoid it. And also, I guess I should say that I've been tracking this trend since 2015, and year after year, it seems that about 25 to 30% of the number of sold properties actually go back on the market. So for every 100 home sales that closed in the first half of this year in Sarasota County, there were 27 pending sales that went back on the market. Now picture yourself being the homeowner that got their house under contract and believes that they are going to be moving out in 30 to 45 days. And so they're making plans to do all that. And there's a lot involved that has to happen in a short period of time once your house is under contract. Or you're the person who's maybe relocating and you've got your stuff being packed up, or maybe it's sitting in a pod or a storage unit someplace, and you're making plans to be someplace for a job, or maybe you've been renting and now you have to be out of your lease by a certain date, and then you find out that the house you thought you were going to buy, you actually can't buy, and you got to start over again. So there's a lot that can go wrong in your life when a house goes back on the market. So here's some good news for buyers. Okay, for a buyer in search of a home, these 2,500 back on the markets presented a new opportunity. Because of this scenario, a buyer would be wise to make certain that the agent they are trusting with this huge responsibility is skilled in the use of backup offers. A backup offer has the ability to put you automatically in contract if the current offer falls apart. Now, Steve Martin Homes Group agents are both experienced with this process and believers in the effectiveness of this approach. So what does that mean when somebody calls us up and wants us to be their buyer's agent? Okay. If there is nothing out there for you that is active right now, or maybe you were just a little too slow to get all your stuff together and you just lost the house that you wanted, so it's now under contract, let's talk about putting in a backup offer. Okay, this is not going to be a full podcast on backup offers, but just know that that could be an option. There are positives and negatives about using a backup offer, so we need to discuss the situation, but it can be a very effective way to get a house. I believe the only one that really benefits from a house going back on the market would be that buyer who is still looking for a house, because now they have another chance at it. It's really bad news for everybody else. For buyers and sellers of a failed contract, the whole situation is usually very upsetting. The extra bad news is that there are probably going to be another 5,000 back on the markets in the second half of the year. It just doesn't seem to stop. Now it's time for you, potential seller of a home, to use your critical thinking skills. What can you do differently than 5,000 people in Sarasota County this year? In order to have a shot at that, you would need to start considering how others handled their real estate transactions. Most home sellers do zero research before choosing a listing agent. Many go off of the recommendations of a friend. Others will choose a friend or acquaintance for fear of hurting their feelings. Some will choose the agency who charges the least commission. All are very poor reasons to choose a realtor. Also, many do not want to take the advice of the realtors that they do choose. Consider their failures as a wake-up call before you list your home for sale. Do some research. Learn to ask some questions. If you're not in my area and you want me to help you find a good agent someplace, I can do that. Just keep in mind that whoever you choose, you are trusting them with what is likely one of your biggest or the largest investment you've ever had. So you need to really be able to trust them. Do not sign a listing agreement with somebody who you're not really persuaded is worthy of being trusted with such an important part of your life. Now, what can a buyer do differently? Many buyers shop on sites like Zillow or Realtor.com. They contact whatever agent pays to have their photos on the side of another agent's listing, and that's who they end up using. Now, what do I mean by that? So when I, as a realtor, get a listing and I put in the MLS, the other sites like Zillow and Realtor and any other third-party sites out there make their best attempt at trying to get all of that information and keep it up to date. I can tell you that I've seen a ton of things on these third-party sites that were not updated. The information there did not match the information in the MLS. So that's my be careful about using third-party sites speech. But what's most important about this is knowing that you have no idea who that person is that you are calling. Just because their face is next to a listing does not mean that they are a good agent or know anything about that house or that area. The truth is, there's plenty that could be done in both preparation and negotiations to prevent a back on the market situation. But if those are some of the most popular methods for choosing a realtor, it's no wonder there's so many bad experiences being had. Now that I've exposed the facts and some of the reasons for these facts, what are you going to do about it?
Real estate agent man. Real estate agent man. Write down his cell phone number and do not forget his name. 941-894-9800. SteveMartinSmith.com. Steve Martin Smith is a licensed Florida realtor with Remax Platinum Realty and Steve Martin Homes Group.